Recently, the hot topic of Honkai Star Rail has been the egregious increase of HP to the end game modes. I wanted to see for myself if the complaints are actually valid. So I did what any normal person would do and went through the data of every single Memory of Chaos ever since its release. And today I will be comparing the difference in HP of the hardest floor for the past 14 rotations. Here is what I found. Alright, so there is a lot to take in here, so let me just start off with this. The first MoC is actually the last MoC 10 as the final floor, because I wanted to show the difference of the first jump from floor 10 to floor 12. And honestly, it doesn't seem too bad compared to whatever the hell's going on here, right? But if I change the visuals of the graph, you'll notice that this is actually the biggest jump. Even though Nikocado Avocado is 40% tankier than the last MoC, the first MoC floor 12 was actually the biggest jump in HP, which is honestly is a good thing. Looking at the other large HP increases, we notice that the biggest jumps are patch 2.0 to 2.1, 2.4 to 2.5, 2.6 to 2.7, and 2.7 to 3.0. It might not be the best sign that the last three jumps are all next to each other, to be honest. So what is even going on here, right? What is causing these huge jumps in max HP? Let's go back to the other graph and let me visualize for you guys the characters that came out during each MoC rotation. In 1.5, we have Ho-Ho and Argenti. In 1.6, we saw the release of Ron Mei and Dr. Ratio. In 2.0, we got Black Swan and a terrorist. 2.1 was Acorn and Aventurine. 2.2 was God herself and an American. 2.3 was Fireflop and... who the fuck is that? 2.4 was Yunli and Jiao Qiu. 2.5 was Fei Xiao and Ling Xia. 2.6 was only Rappa. 2.7 was Monday and Fug You. And 3.0 was the Herta and Big Boobies. Alright, so if you look a little closer, you'll start to notice a few trends. Whenever a really strong character releases, the following Memory of Chaos usually follows up by also increasing in difficulty. The most notable ones are Akron, Fei Xiao, the Fugan Sunday patch, and the Herta patch, obviously. These patches had the largest HP fluctuations, especially in Akron's patch. My personal theory is that the power creep in HSR truly started in patch 2.1 on Akron's banner. Now you might be wondering, why not Fei Xiao's patch? Or why not the Herta's patch? Well, honestly, this graph is not perfect. Not even close. The graph can't take into account the MoC debuffs, but more importantly, it doesn't take into account the enemy we're up against. In Fei Xiao's patch, we fought Hule, but the other side were the three triplet motherfuckers. And the weird thing about the triplet motherfuckers is that they have a combined health pool. It makes it pretty hard to judge HP inflation because some characters kind of just ran through them, like Himiko, Firefly, and Akron, while other characters had to kill them as if they were a normal enemy, like Dr. Ratio, Fei Xiao, maybe Buhil. Nikocado Avocado kind of has a different thing going on. His HP is even harder to judge. Nicholas takes a huge amount of damage when you kill his spears. Like throughout the fight, a couple million of your damage comes from only killing his spears. So this MoC, funny enough, has inflated HP. So this takes me back to my theory that it all started on Akron's patch back in 2.1. And do you guys want to know which boss made its debut in 2.1?
Oh, fates in the wheel, a daring gamble, walking the brink of death for rebirth. I can't bring it on.
She's gonna win as well.
What the f is that?
Arguably the hardest boss, releasing along with the strongest character we've ever seen up to this point. This was the new standard that they set back in 2.1. Akron is an anniversary unit and an emanator. Just think about it for a second, right? Just think about that for a second. The Herta is only an emanator and Castris is only an anniversary unit. Akron was both. So obviously, if Hoyo wants to keep making money, the future characters will have to compete with Akron, right? Firefly releases, Boothill releases, Yunli releases. But as our DPS gets stronger and stronger, the enemies will have to get tankier and tankier. And people don't like that for good reason. But honestly, from what I've seen, the true catalyst that causes HP inflation and power creep are the supports. Let's take a look at this graph one more time, right? It is true that over time, it's always a steady increase, but only recently meaning 2 to 3 months ago, has the power creep discussion gotten super relevant. You could argue that the beginning of the problem was on patch 2.1 on Acheron's banner, but the point at which that problem started to get out of control was probably around patch 2.5 on Fei Xiao's banner. If we take a closer look at patch 2.1 to 2.5, this is what we'll see. Acheron releases in 2.1, Robin releases in 2.2, but she doesn't really have a perfect DPS to pair up with yet. But then in 2.3, I'd argue we discover our first perfect pair. Firefly and Ran Mei. An absolutely insane combo, probably the two most synergistic units up to this point, until we reach patch 2.4. where we see the release of Jiao Kui. And so these two units are probably still the best paired units in this game. Acheron really struggles to this day without Jiao Chou. And then right after that patch in 2.5, Fei Xiao releases, so now Robin finally gets her perfect pair as well. And if you look closely, after all three of these perfect pairs show up, the HP inflation just keeps getting higher and higher and higher and higher. These three perfect pairs were probably the strongest team in the game for the average player. And it probably wasn't even close. Maybe Yanqing was pretty close in strength, but that's about it. Acheron's release was also the beginning of a new shitty tactic that Hoyo would start to implement for a couple characters. And that would be that almost half of Acheron's kit is locked behind her signature light cone. After this, you had characters like Yunli and Rappa come out. Yunli's main function needs her to get hit, so they sell her the ability to get hit more on her light cone. Rappa's light cone gives her break effect, energy, and action advance. And there's only one free to play option, except it was a new 4-star light cone, so the odds of you having multiple copies is like super slim. These are the things that start to add up to make your account feel weaker. Before Acheron, an E0S0 DPS would clear just fine, but these days if a character comes out and you didn't save enough to get their signature light cone, which is honestly most people, then you're gonna start feeling weaker way earlier than you used to. Just think about how much weaker Acheron is without her signature light cone, and think about how much weaker Aglaia is without her signature light cone or the battle pass light cone. Speaking of remembrance characters, I also think this problem will only get worse and worse. Castoris will very likely need her light cone. Remembrance is a new path and there are like 0 options out there right now. So if you plan on pulling Castoris and don't get her light cone, you either have to buy the battle pass light cone or you're stuck using these light cones. Making the signature light cone almost mandatory means most people that pull the character will also pull the light cone. This means that future competition will likely have to be scaled off of an E0S1 character. MiHoYo will likely choose to power creep what most people have, and most people that have Acheron have her light cone. So in my opinion, the true starting point of HP inflation was in 2.1, but the issue didn't really explode until patch 2.5. I think the best way I can put it is that Acheron brought the TNT to the table, but then Robin and Jiao Chou, they detonated the TNT, you know? And ever since that point, the enemies have had to base their strength off of these characters. And obviously, we can see where that's gotten us. But whatever the future holds, I will be there. Will you? Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a nice day. Bye.